20 token. Token sells October 5th. And I want to talk a little bit about why this token exists by starting with the history of my company, Otoy. So Otoy is a pioneer in visual effects. I started it by coming up with ways of rendering super high-end visual effects on GPUs, on graphics cards. And that path led us to productize Octane Render, which is the world's most popular GPU rendering software. It is used for the opening of Westworld. People are able to render visual effects that used to take 40 hours in a matter of minutes. And we've done our job so well that now really rendering television and film on a graphics card costs nothing. So the last 5 years of the company, I've been focused on what's coming next. And we're entering a world where augmented reality, virtual reality, light field displays that are coming out of the next few years are going to demand holographic content. And if you know a little bit about me and my company, I actually started it with the intent of building the holodeck, or at least building the software that drives it. So the path towards getting there meant that I needed a lot of GPUs on the cloud. So an artist that's working with our software, making a game or tools or graphics is able to do some of that work locally and then shift the rest of that work onto Amazon's GPUs in the cloud, which actually I helped design the G2 instance type, or Google Compute, where there's also GPUs. And in fact, Eric Schmidt joined our board basically because of our GPU rendering work. And what we found when we launched this service 3 years ago was that we didn't have enough graphics cards on Google or on Amazon or Azure or SoftLayer. And I took out a patent around 2009 thinking not that there would be centralized GPU power, but that all the GPUs in the world, leveraged together through a decentralized network, could fulfill the kind of rendering work that we would need to do when we got towards holographic rendering. And that sounds like it's far off. It's not. We actually have a deal with Facebook that was announced this year where we're powering Facebook video that's holographic. It's built around a special camera that we designed with them. That was announced in April at F8. And if you've played Pokemon Go or you're familiar with AR games at all, they're usually built in a tool called Unity. And our software is integrated in Unity, and that's 7 million content creators that are now going to have access, starting the end of this year, to this GPU cloud rendering service that is currently live on the public cloud. And what's interesting about our service is that as we've come up with smaller and smaller chunks of rendering power to deliver to users, now it's about $5 for a few minutes or 2 minutes of GPU rendering, we found that more and more users sign up. And we need to solve two problems. We need to get those costs to be lower, and we need about 100x more GPUs. So Render Token is designed to deliver that. What's crazy is that if we take the $5 of rendering work that we're currently spending on Google or on Amazon, and we just send that out to, let's say, miners that have a 1080 Ti or an AMD graphics card, and we give them that same money, it's about 50x what they would make from Ethereum mining. And so I posted that on the internet about a week ago, and I went to all the different forums, and I said, hey, miners, you guys are going to make about 47 times more money fulfilling rendering work than you would mining Ethereum. And I challenged anyone to poke a hole in that, and they didn't. They can't. It's really true. The only thing that we have to do is fulfill demand for that work, and we will totally change the landscape of cloud computing for graphics. And I think that what we're doing is, in some ways, spiritually a successor or parallel to Golem. Golem's focused on general purpose compute tasks, and we're focused very specifically on tracing rays of light. And all of the operations that can follow from that are really fascinating. And some of our partners and the backing that we've had help make those dreams viable. So one of the earliest backers of Otoy was a man named Ari Emanuel. And if you read the Render Token blog and you read some of the, there's just an interview that came out today in Ethereum Trader News. It was fantastic. Ari believed in me from the very beginning. If you've ever seen the show Entourage, Ari Gold, based on the real Ari, and he saw what I was doing with graphics rendering and saw two things. One, I could totally change the economics of film work, which we did. And the second thing was that the entire chain of IP, the way that shows are packaged, talent is packaged, all of that could change. And I told him very early on about the blockchain, not as a form of cryptocurrency, but as a way of ensuring and enshrining content, IP, authorship. And if you mix that with the actual work that's being used to render content, which we're doing, and streaming and publishing it, which we're also doing, we also, by the way, are streaming all of this holographic video for Facebook, not just processing the data from the camera. That's the future of Hollywood, and he's made that bet very clearly with us. And Ari's empire, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's WME and IMG. It's about 70% of all content through Hollywood flows through his two companies, and he owns things like UFC. So there's a lot of thought that he and I have put in over 13 years into this system. And the blockchain is one important part of that. The other part is that Render Token itself builds an entire economy around a unit of rendering that is based on bouncing photons around. It's not based on gigahertz or clock cycles. It's pretty much what is 1 watt of energy going into the system deliver in terms of the actual photons of light that our renderer is able to create. And you can even reverse that process for doing photogrammetry processing like what we're doing with Facebook. And you can come to see from that there's an entire ecosystem that is going to be filling in everything from your Zillow scan for Matterport to your AR games that are going to be powering ARKit and AR Core on Android. And I think that the furthest looking vision I have is that in about 3 or 4 years' time, you're going to have light field wall-size displays that are going to be very inexpensive. And we're backing a company called Lightfield Labs that's building these very displays. And it's going to replace a lot of other screens. It's not necessarily going to be AR and VR glasses that are going to define our ambient computing experience. It will be light-filled walls that replace windows, walls even, and driving that is going to require a lot of compute power. And the cloud and graphics cards and the decentralized network that Render Token is creating will enable that to happen. There's a lot of hard problems that our token sale and the efforts and work that we're going to use from that will solve. One of them is, somebody mentioned earlier, homomorphic encryption, where you're encrypting data as you're computing it. It's very important that we do that when we're rendering jobs for not just big studios like Disney and HBO that are investors in Otoy, but also just average artists and want to make sure their assets aren't touched. So we are working with companies like AMD on a trusted compute module for graphics cards that will enable such jobs to happen securely on all the world's GPUs. And similarly, there's other work that's being done by Intel and NVIDIA along those same lines. So we're confident that that will get solved. The other really hard problem that we've mostly solved is that we can decouple all of the 3D tools from the rendering work. And that took us about 5 years. That's basically done. And we're now leveraging that for integrations inside of Unity and Unreal Engine, which is another very popular video game engine. But there's about 10 million content creators that know how to use those tools. There's probably about 10 times as many that if you gave them a very simple AR, sort of Photoshop-style toolkit, they could be used to create the AR content of the future. User-generated content is a really huge, forward-looking, an important piece of the render network that we're building. And in the future, when I predict what the 2020s will be like, you'll have AI-assisted rendering. You won't have to code. You won't have to know 3D tools. You'll be able to create realities very easily. And the foundation of that is the system that we built. So I just want to dive a little bit deeper into the Render Token itself and how it operates. As I said, the token sale is on the 5th. Pre-registration is on the 27th of September, and we're here. We actually have a booth, so you can feel free to follow up with us, and also you can go to rendertoken.com and learn all about what we're doing. But there is no other token like it. I think as a utility token tied to a watt per unit of reality rendering, it's very unique. And the success of this token is going to change a lot of things beyond just our dreams for how we want to render reality in the holodeck. If we shift all of the GPU mining from hashing towards rendering, and I think we can do that, that means all of this wasted compute power, all of this wasted energy, and as we all know, Bitcoin mining and Ethereum mining can run higher electricity bill than many countries. If we shift that towards rendering work that an artist and an author and a creator wants to generate, that means all the work done is useful. That means all of the so-called mining work that's done towards render jobs is actually put towards work that is always useful. There's less adversarial competition for hashing numbers. So I see the benefits of what Ethereum is able to do, just sort of unlocking the value of rendering work for 16 hours, for example, from one token, being a fundamentally valuable piece of the blockchain. And it also doesn't mean that we have to go all the way to proof of stake in order to capitalize on faster transactions. A render job itself is, in a sense, the proof of work is validated by the fact that the artist receiving the data has to say, this is what I want. We have to take care of the very same thing on our centralized cloud service today. So it's an incredibly homogeneous and valuable and self-sustaining system that I think will also make the entire operations that are done on the blockchain much more valuable and useful for us and for everyone involved in the future of the blockchain. So I think we have a couple of minutes left possibly for questions. If not, I'm happy to follow up anytime in this conference. Yes, in the front.
Why did you show it down?
We didn't have time. That was a late invite. So, but please go to otoy.com and you'll see everything you need to see. Have you seen the opening of Westworld? Are you a fan of the show? Game of Thrones? Okay. Well, our graphics are used throughout there. So please visit otoy.com. Follow us on Twitter. You should absolutely see visuals of what we do. It is very compelling. But if you've seen television and movies today, you've seen our work. And the thing that's amazing about that work is that it's done on video game graphics cards. So the next level is holographic content. And please go to rendertoken.com, otoy.com, follow us on Twitter. You'll see plenty of examples. Also, follow me on Twitter at Jules Urbach. I post a lot about this stuff all the time. Thank you.